The English you learned in class doesn't exist. Not in real life, not in films, not in music, not in any conversation between two native speakers moving at normal speed. The English you learned was a controlled, slowed down textbook version of the language, designed to be understood, but not to reflect how English actually sounds. And that gap between the English you studied and the English you hear is exactly why a native speaker at full speed sounds like they're speaking a completely different language. In this video, I'm going to show you what's actually happening to those sounds when native speakers talk fast, why your ear was never trained to catch these sounds, and most importantly, how I cracked this myself using something most people would never think of as a listening tool. So let's get into it. Let me describe something that I know a lot of you have experienced. You're watching a film, an American film. No subtitles because, you want to challenge yourself. And for the first 20 minutes, you're actually following it fine. The dialogue is clear, the accents are manageable, you're understanding most of what's said. And then two characters start talking really fast. Maybe they're arguing. Maybe it's a rapid back and forth between friends. And suddenly, it's gone. You catch a word here, a phrase there, but the rest is a blur of sound that your brain can't decode in time. And the frustrating part, you rewind, you put the subtitles back on, and you realize the words are not complicated. You know all those words when you read them. Individually, you would understand every single one. So what happened? What happened is that the sounds you studied and the sounds you heard were not the same sounds. In a textbook, in a language lab, in a controlled classroom environment, English is pronounced deliberately. Every syllable, every word boundary. I want to go to the store. Clear, distinct words. Now, in a real conversation at natural speed, that same sentence sounds something like, I want to go to the store. I want to go to the store. You see, the words blur, merge, and mutate into something that sounds completely different from what was on the page. Your ear was trained on the controlled version. So when the real version shows up, at speed, in context, with all the messiness of natural speech, your brain doesn't recognize it. Not because you don't know the words, but because you've never heard them in that form. This isn't a vocabulary problem. It's a phonology problem, and it has a name. It's called connected speech. And once you understand how it works, that blur starts to resolve. Connected speech has three main mechanisms. Each one transforms the sounds in a different way. And each one has a specific name, a specific pattern, and specific examples you can start listening for today. Before I break down the three mechanisms, a quick word. Understanding connected speech is one thing. Now, training your ear and your mouth to actually produce language in real time is another. The B2 Edge app's AI speaking coach is built exactly around this. Real conversational English at natural speed, with feedback on not just what you say, but also how you say it. So, if you want to learn more about the app and how it has a structured curriculum to take you from B1 to B2 level, link in the description. But now, let's talk about the mechanisms of connected speech. Mechanism number one, linking. Linking is what happens when the final sound of one word connects directly to the opening sound of the next word, with no gap between them. Here's the classic example. Turn it off. In isolation, we have three words, three distinct units. But at natural speed, turn it off. Turn it off. Three words that behave like one. What about this one? Not at all. Not at all. In speech, it sounds like not at all. Not at all. What about pick it up? It sounds like pick it up. Pick it up. Come on in sounds like come on in. Come on in. You see what's happening? The consonant at the end of one word links directly onto the vowel at the beginning of the next word. There's no pause, no separation. The word boundary disappears. And here's why this matters for your listening. Your brain was trained to look for word boundaries. It learned English word by word. This word, then that word, then this word again. So when the boundaries disappear and the sounds merge, the brain can't find where one word ends and the next begins. It hears a stream of sound it can't make sense of. Once you know linking exists, once you know to listen for it, you start hearing it everywhere. And what once sounded like blur starts sounding like, oh, that's just three words joined together. I understand that. Linking connects sounds across word boundaries. But the second mechanism does something even more radical. It makes sounds disappear entirely. Mechanism number 2, dropping. If you want the technical term, we call it elision. Dropping is when sounds that exist in the written word, sounds you were taught to pronounce, simply disappear in natural speech. They're not linked. They're not transformed. They're gone. The most famous examples you already know, even if you didn't know they had a name. Going to becomes gonna. Not as slang, as normal, natural, everyday speech. I'm going to call you later becomes I'm gonna call you later, or even I'm gonna call you later. That's what comes out. Want to becomes wanna. Have to becomes have to. Kind of becomes kinda. Sort of, sorta. Lot of becomes lotta. But it goes further than the famous contractions. In fast natural speech, the T at the end of words frequently disappears. What do you want becomes what do you want. What do you want? The T sounds at the end of what and want are simply not there. Next, please becomes next, please, next, please. You see, the T in next almost entirely disappears. These aren't mistakes, they're patterns, and they apply consistently across native speech. Here's the thing most learners don't realize about elision. When you hear a native speaker say gonna, and you were expecting going to, your brain doesn't just mishear it. Your brain actively rejects it. Because you learned going to, gonna doesn't match that pattern, so it sounds wrong. The brain flags it as noise instead of language. Training your ear means building a new set of patterns. Gonna is not sloppy speech. Gonna is English. Now, linking merges sounds. Dropping eliminates them. And the third mechanism, the one that catches even advanced learners off guard, transforms the sounds into something completely different. Mechanism number 3, reduction. Reduction is what happens to unstressed syllables and function words in natural speech. They don't disappear entirely, but they get compressed, weakened, and changed into something that sounds completely different from their written form. The key to understanding reduction is understanding stress. In English, certain words carry stress and certain words don't. Content words, nouns, main verbs, adjectives, and adverbs tend to be stressed. They carry the meaning. Your brain prioritizes them. Function words, articles, prepositions, conjunctions, auxiliary verbs tend to be unstressed. They're the grammatical glue. And in natural speech, they get reduced to the point where they barely sound like themselves. Let me give you some examples here. First, and. And becomes an. So you and I sounds like you and I. You and I. Fish and chips, fish and chips. Fish and chips. Do you hear that? Fishin', fishin', fish and chips. Now, for becomes fur. I can say, what did you do that for? Or even, I can reduce the auxiliary verb did here, and I can go, what'd you do? What'd you do that for? What'd you do that for? To becomes t, n, or the, depending on what follows. So, I need to go often sounds like I need to go. I need to go. You see? I need a, I need a, I need to go. Him becomes am. So tell him sounds like tell him, or give him, give him a call, give him a call. You see, it's not give him a call, just give him a call. Can gets reduced to kun in the affirmative. So I can do it becomes I can, I can, I can do it. I can do it. Yeah, I can do it. Meanwhile, the negative can't stays strong because it carries meaning. I can't do it. I can't do it. You see? Can here is clear and emphatic. It's negative. The stress difference is what tells you which one you heard. The last example with can is genuinely important because I can do it and I can't do it in fast natural speech sound almost identical to a trained ear. The difference is in stress and vowel quality. But to an untrained ear, they sound the same. And misunderstanding that particular distinction has real consequences. Reduction is the hardest of the three mechanisms to train because it's invisible in the written language. The text says and, but the sound says n. There's no visual cue. You have to learn it through your ear, not your eyes. Now I want to tell you how I actually trained my ear for this. Because understanding the three mechanisms is one thing, but your ear doesn't improve from understanding. It improves from exposure and repetition. And the tool that helped me most was not a textbook. It was music. In those early years of learning English, before I had access to the internet as we know it today, before streaming, before any of the tools learners have nowadays, I had songs, and I used them obsessively. I would find a song I loved, something from the 70s, the 80s, a rock song, a pop song from that era, and I would listen to it on repeat, not casually, intensely. I was hunting for every sound. I would try to transcribe the lyrics by ear before I ever looked them up. And here's what happened when I finally looked at the printed lyrics. Often they didn't match what I heard. Not because I had heard wrong, but because the singer was doing all three things we just talked about. Linking sounds, dropping sounds, reducing sounds. I want to hold your hand. You say, not I want to hold your hand. Gonna everywhere. Instead of and. And the vowels compressed, weakened, swallowed. Music taught me that real English isn't the English on the page. It's something faster, looser, more fluid. And once I started hearing it in songs, I started hearing it everywhere. In films also, in TV series, in real conversations. The films, I would say, were the second piece for me. What textbooks could never give me was colloquial vocabulary. The phrases, the slang, the expressions that native speakers actually use in conversation. Those don't appear in grammar books, but they appear in dialogue, in the back and forth of people actually talking to each other. I consumed films the same way I consumed songs, repeatedly, attentively, with my ear looking for the gap between the written version and the heard version. And gradually, not overnight, not in a week, but gradually, the blur resolved for me. What once sounded like noise started sounding like language. So let me bring this together. Fast English doesn't sound like a different language because native speakers are being careless. It sounds different because of three specific, systematic, entirely learnable mechanisms. Linking, remember? Word boundaries disappear as sounds merge across words. Dropping, sounds that exist in writing simply vanish in speech. And reduction, unstressed function words compress into something barely recognizable. These three things together are what creates the blur. And now that you know what they are, you can start listening for them specifically. Here's how I want you to apply this today. Find a song you love in English. Listen to it once and try to transcribe what you actually hear, not what you think the words should be. Then look up the lyrics and compare. Every place where what you wrote doesn't match the lyric sheet, that's one of these three mechanisms at work. That's your ear learning to close the gap. Do the same with a film scene. 2 minutes of dialogue. Transcribe what you hear. Compare it to the subtitle file. Every discrepancy is a lesson. This is not a quick fix, it's a training process. But it is a training process that works because it worked for me from a borrowed grammar book and a cassette player in my hometown with none of the tools you have access to today. So if it worked then for me, it will absolutely work for you now. Now you have two options. Option one, take the method I just gave you and build it into your practice manually. Songs, films, transcription exercises, attentive listening every day. It works. It just takes time and self-discipline to set up. Option two, aside from that, also open the B2 Edge app, where the AI speaking coach puts you in real conversational English at natural speed, with feedback on how you produce connected speech, not just whether you understand it. To learn more about the app, link in the description. Either way, start listening differently. The blur is not random. It has rules. And now you know what these rules, what these patterns are. I'm Thiago. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll talk to you in the next video. By the way, if you want to keep learning, I highly recommend you check out this lesson next.